Welcome to our Navigating Map 101 course. This course is intended to give a basic overview of the map test, the construction of the map test, and information on how to use the data. There is additional Navigating Map courses that go deeper into each of these topics. This course is intended for new map users and anyone looking for a refresher in understanding map. Plano ISD's strategic plan has 5 pillars. How does this information connect to the strategic plan? Pillar 1 is teaching and learning. Within this pillar, Strategy 1.2 is to equip teachers to continually assess learning using a variety of methods to determine the next steps in the learning progression. And how does this information connect to the High Reliability Schools Level 2, ensuring effective teaching in every classroom? Leading Indicator 2.4 is about a match between the feedback your administrator gives you on evaluations and the results of your student achievement data. So we will empower you to analyze the results of your own student achievement data to find places where your students responded well to your instruction and places where you have an opportunity to grow your instructional practice. Leading Indicator 2.5 is about differentiating professional learning for teachers based on your needs and goals. Throughout this self-paced course, you will access the information you want when you need it. Our department is happy to follow up with you at any time to specifically discuss your data. This flowchart shows the comprehensive assessment plan for our district. The graphic shows you that each assessment has a purpose and gives a different piece of information about our students. Assessment must be used and interpreted within the proper context. We begin with the TEKS that identify the state standards for what all students at each grade level should know and be able to do. Plano ISD's curriculum uses the TEKS as a foundation and provides greater depth, appropriate sequencing, primary and supporting resources, and instructional methods that transform broad standards into meaningful classroom instruction. In addition, we consider the English language proficiency standards, which give us information about helping our English language learners. There are assessments required by the state to ensure that all student groups are meeting the learning standards in all districts and campuses. We also have information about what our students have learned and what they're ready to learn next. This comes from classroom assessments and MAP. Classroom assessments includes the full range of formative assessments, both informal and formal, both common and classroom specific, that teachers utilize to monitor student learning. You also need to know what kind of instruction would benefit each student the most. This will maximize the instruction for your students. COGAT is a cognitive abilities test, which provides us with information on how each student learns best. We also have information about CCMR, credit recovery, accelerated instruction plans for some students, discipline and attendance data. All of this information is considered together when making instructional choices in the classroom. And then finally, administering the lesson. The purpose of this presentation is to focus specifically on MAP, and although we're focusing on just this one piece today, please remember that we need to consider many factors and not just one test before making instructional decisions. To make effective instructional decisions, you need to continually assess learning using a variety of methods to determine the next steps in the learning progression. On our PISD staff website, you will find a page for the Assessment, Research, and Program Evaluation Department. On this page, there is an entire section for MAP where you will find all of the resources you need to understand, interpret, and use the MAP data. You can access the Assessment, Research, and Program Evaluation website by going to your web desk and clicking on the Inside PISD icon. Then, under Departments, select the Assessment Department. MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress. It was created by NWEA, the Northwest Education Association, over 40 years ago. It's administered to 11 million students across 146 countries each year, including more than 2 million students in the state of Texas alone. Why is this important? Because you do not have to defend this test. This is a test with decades of research behind it. MAP is a norm reference test with a very high validity and reliability based on the established research standards for test development. In other words, it's not valid and reliable just because our department or district says so. In order for an assessment to be able to say it is reliable and valid, it has to pass several tests and go through a lengthy process to prove that it tests what it says it will, and it tests it well. Although MAP is a district expectation, this is not just a district-created test. This is a test that has been used around the U.S. and the world for over 40 years. 3 things that you should know about MAP. First of all, it's computer adaptive, not fixed form. The test adapts up or down depending on if the student answers the question correctly. Second, MAP is designed around a continuum of learning, which is grade level independent, although it is aligned to our state standards. So MAP is not looking for which 6th grade skills a student has, but anything at all that the student is able to do. Because MAP is not constrained by grade level, it gives us a broader sense of what students know and are able to do. And finally, MAP is predictive of success on our state assessments. MAP can predict who is likely to get to the MEETS level on STAR at the end of the year. The purpose of MAP is to identify what a student already knows and what they're ready to learn next. Each campus has a MAP testing coordinator that can help you with questions about the MAP test. We should always begin with a purpose. What is our purpose for using MAP, or measures of academic progress? Why MAP? This test measures student performance compared to national norms for achievement and national norms for growth. MAP results are highly predictive of performance on STAR. Because MAP is not grade level specific, it allows us to make sure all students are learning and growing year after year, not just the students who are on or below grade level. The MAP RIT scale identifies the spot on the learning continuum where a student is ready for instruction. What comes before that RIT range on the continuum is what the student already knows. We use this one assessment to fulfill many purposes, and this allows us to minimize testing wherever possible. We use MAP to fulfill the TEA requirement of a universal screener. We use MAP as part of the gifted identification process, part of the Math Rocks identification process, and part of our intervention identification process. We consider MAP in special ed evaluations. We use MAP to measure growth. We use MAP to identify TEKS for improvement in all of the tiers, and we can use MAP to goal set with students. There are 3 different versions of the same MAP growth assessment. K2 MAP is given in our district for students in grades kindergarten and first and presents the test questions orally. This testing format allows us to assess the development of early reading and math concepts before a student is an independent reader. This test is scored on the same RIT scale as all other versions and is based on the same learning continuum as all other versions of MAP. K2 MAP covers the learning continuum at the lowest end of the RIT scale. K2 MAP is adaptive, so no matter what the grade level of the student, the content will adapt down to kinder and pre-K concepts when available, and will adapt up to 2nd and 3rd grade concepts where needed. Starting in grade 2, students take the MAP 2.5 version. The scale on which it is scored is the same. The learning continuum is the same. There is a great deal of overlapping content between the K2 test and the 2.5 test, as well as the 2.5 test and the 6+ test. The difference is in how the content is presented. On the 2.5 test, students must read the questions and answer choices independently. For students who are not reading on grade level, this can be a challenge, but one that is not unexpected. This test is adaptive and will adapt down to kinder and 1st grade content, as well as adapt up to 6th and 7th grade content when necessary. MAP 6+ is typically administered in middle school with some exceptions. Again, this version is scored on the RIT scale based on the same learning continuum. There is a great deal of overlapping content between the 2.5 test and the 6+ test. The 6+ test will adapt down to concepts in the lower grades. A student who has accommodations that are allowable on MAP can receive those accommodations on any version of the test. A student who needs significant academic support may be able to take a different version of the test from his peers. A Spanish version of the Reading and Math MAP is available. The Multilingual Department has information on who should take the Spanish MAP test. These three versions of MAP together represent a continuous scale of concepts from kindergarten all the way through grade 8 and beyond, allowing us to measure a student's growth over time. It would not be correct to assume that one version of the MAP test is harder than the previous version. Each version instead overlaps and builds upon the one before, with additional content at the upper end, to allow students to show more of what they know as they grow. All three versions of the test overlap in content and presentation. Higher performing students in grades K and 1 will see concepts from 2nd and 3rd grade. As a student in these lower grades begins to rise up through the RIT ranges, they will encounter some items that are no longer presented orally to them. They will see that if they are a higher performing student and accessing items that are closely aligned with higher level TEKS. Lower performing students taking the 2-5 test or the 6+ test will be able to navigate backwards through the grade levels. They will be able to see items that are aligned to lower grade level standards to provide the right level of challenge for them.